Tomorrow marks 30 years since the deadliest homegrown terrorist attack on American soil. A truck bomb ripped through the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City, killing 167 people that morning. 684 people were injured. That bombing changed how the FBI investigate acts of terrorism. New laws were enacted, and security and construction changed at federal buildings across the country. King 5's Susannah Frame traveled to Oklahoma City to report on the aftermath of that attack.
Unexpected and appreciated forms of support keep appearing for those having to work inside. Last night, an impromptu inspirational service took place at the foot of the building.
So Susannah joins us now. I remember being on the anchor desk that morning 30 years ago. You went to Oklahoma City. So when you look back at 30 years, just walk us through what it was like to be there.
Well, the first thing I remember is it looking like a war zone. You saw the blown out building. It looked like something you would see in Beirut, you know. Right. And there were so many people there, rescue crews scurrying all around, many of them with their dogs, one from the Pacific Northwest who I was embedded with. Also people waiting to hear the status of their loved ones. You can imagine that scene. Just people praying and hoping that there was going to be signs of life coming out. And another thing I remember is that was so devastating, a third of the building gone. But there was damage to buildings. I mean, buildings blown apart 6 blocks away. And I remember going to those other buildings that used to be restaurants, used to be insurance companies. So a lot of buildings, a lot of people were impacted at 9 o'clock in the morning 30 years ago tomorrow.
And the initial shock was that it was at a federal building, that it was a moving truck that was sort of responsible, the sort of the point of the blast. And then on the second floor, there was the daycare.
Oh my gosh, the daycare, that was
children.
Absolutely chilling. We were with that Pacific Northwest search and rescue crew that got to the daycare. They had to pull out so much rubble. It was on the second floor. I remember that being a horrible day. And another thing I remember, Joyce, is being so personally affected by it. You know, we cover a lot of tragedies. This one was so different. Of course, the magnitude of it all, but also that by that time when I got there, we knew it was an American suspect. Right. We did not think in a million years that this would be an American citizen doing this to fellow Americans. It really hit a chord, and it was just so sad. My photographer and I, we would sit in our rental, news van every night and just cry. I vividly remember that 30 years ago.
Because every time we got a bit more news, it was worse. That there were 3 sets of siblings. There were kids who were lost in the building with their grandparents or with their parents.
I can tell you something that was super positive. I have never seen, that's me with my photographer, Scotty McLaughlin. We're the ones that went down there together. And we had never seen such gratitude by a community. Kids were making cards and posters and buttons. I have this
saved some
little
of it.
Button that I saved from 30 years ago. It's of a news reporter thanking us. It says, "Our heroes." It's a picture of me and a little pencil drawing of the building. They were just so grateful that someone had shown the interest, of course, of being there. And those are some of the, on the screen there, you're seeing some of the thank you notes that the kids in Oklahoma had written for our Pacific Northwest search and rescue team. I'd never seen anything quite like that. I also, in preparation, I knew I was going to answer some questions today, so I reached out to Scotty, who you just saw on the screen, yesterday, and I said, "What do you remember from 30 years ago?" And he wrote me a very long text. It was so touching. So I brought part of it out here to read to you. He said, "We arrived at the building and I couldn't really fathom the moment of shock. I remember editing a report for the 11 o'clock news and breaking down in tears thinking of the kids in the daycare. I remember knowing that we were in the epicenter of the death of our innocents. It was a heavy heart that drove us to tell the unthinkable to an unsuspecting nation, awakening to the dark reality of hate and fear." And I think what he's talking about is terrorism. We were used to seeing those images in the Middle East, in Europe, in Northern Ireland. That's for somebody else. But now,
here we are.
It was on American soil.
Yeah. Thanks
Yeah.
for sharing with us
You're welcome.
and bring back to us what was such a pivotal moment in American history.
Yeah.
Something I know we will never, and many of you will never, ever forget.
It was actually kind of an honor to be there. It gets me choked up just even thinking about it.
Me too. I still think
Yeah.
of the kids, Colton, and the parents, and the
Yeah.
devastation. So thank
Yeah,
you.
sure.
Thank you.